The Egyptian Armed Forces are the military forces of Egypt and are one of the largest in Africa, the Middle East, and the world. They consist of the Army, Navy, Air Force and Air Defense Command. The Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces is the President of the Republic, is provided for in the Egyptian Constitution. The Supreme Council of the Armed Forces consists of 20 to 25 members, headed by the Commander-in-Chief and Defense Minister and his deputy, the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces. Members of the Council are formed of the leaders of the main military branches and the leaders of the two armies in addition to the leaders of the military regions along with the heads of the upper bodies, administrative managers and the Assistant Defense Secretary for Constitutional and Legal Affairs and Secretary General of the Department of Defense. The Egyptian army is one of the oldest armies in history. The first of its wars began to unite Egypt at the hands of King Menes in 3200 BC, and have fought major wars and battles over the centuries, from the Pharaonic era and through Ptolemaic and Romania, Islamic and even modern era. The Egyptian army have fought battles and wars in many parts of the world, mostly defensive, with the most notable being the Hyksos War, Battle of Ain Jalut, Battle of Al-Mansoura, Battle of Nezib, Battle of Megiddo, Battle of Carchemish, Battle of Hattin, Egyptian-Saudi War, Anglo-Egyptian War, Battle of Tel el-Kabir, Greek War of Independence, Egyptian-Ottoman War, World War I, World War II, 1948 Arab-Israeli War, Egyptian Revolution of 1952, Tripartite Aggression, North Yemen Civil War, Six-Day War, Nigerian Civil War, War of Attrition, October War, Shabara, Libyan-Egyptian War, Gulf War, Egyptian Crisis, and the Sinai Insurgency. Military equipment varies in the Egyptian army between Eastern and Western armament, coming from several countries through mutual military cooperation, including the United States, Russia, France, Italy, Ukraine, China, as well as locally from the AOI and MMP. The power of the Egyptian armed forces since the Arab Spring has caused it to be called a state within a state. Overview. The headquarters of the Egyptian armed forces are in Khobraya el-Ghuba, Cairo. The Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the senior uniformed officer, is currently Colonel General Sedka Sobhai and the Chief of Staff is currently Lieutenant General Mahmoud Hegazi. The Ministry of Defense is responsible for managing the affairs of the Egyptian armed forces and maintaining its facilities. The armed forces inventory includes equipment from different countries around the world. Equipment from the former Soviet Union is being progressively replaced by more modern US, French, and British equipment, a significant portion of which is built under license in Egypt, such as the M1 Abrams tank. Egypt remains a strong military and strategic partner and is a participant in NATO's Mediterranean Dialogue Forum. The Egyptian military is one of the strongest in the region, and gives Egypt regional military supremacy rivaled only by Israel. Besides being one of the strongest in Africa, Egypt is one of the few countries in the Middle East, and the only Arab state, with a reconnaissance satellite and has launched another one in 2014. However, the Egyptian armed forces were not in such a good state in the mid-1950s. Just before the Suez Crisis, political allegiance rather than military competence was the main criterion for promotion. The Egyptian commander, Field Marshal Abdul Hakim Imer, was a purely political appointee who owed his position to his close friendship with Nasser. A heavy drinker, he would prove himself grossly incompetent as a general during the crisis. In 1956, the armed forces was well equipped with weapons from the Soviet Union such as T-34 and IS-3 tanks, MiG-15 fighters, Ilyushin Il-28 bombers, Su-100 self-propelled guns and assault rifles. Egyptian troops were excellent in defensive operations, but had little capacity for offensive operations, owing to the lack of rapport and effective small unit leadership. In January 2011, a delegation led by the Chief of Staff of Egypt's Armed Forces, Lt. Gen. Sami Hafiz Annan, was in Washington, D.C., although the visit was truncated due to the protests. The sessions, an annual country-to-country military coordination, were being led for the U.S. by Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs Alexander Verschbau. A meeting with ADM, Mike Mullen, chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, and other talks had been planned to extend to the 2nd of February. However, in light of events in Egypt, the delegation left Washington to return home. Before their Friday night departure, Verschbau urged the 24 Egyptian military representatives to exercise restraint. The Supreme Council of the Armed Forces was convened during the course of the Egyptian Revolution of 2011, and assumed power when Mubarak resigned on the 11th of February 2011. On Sunday, the 12th of August 2012, newly elected President Mohamed Morsi announced a series of military appointments. Hussein Tantawai, the Minister of Defense and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, was retired. Morsi also retired Sami Nan, the Army's Chief of Staff. Morsi awarded both men state medals and appointed them as advisors to the President. Thirdly, the President appointed the head of military intelligence, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, as Minister of Defense to replace Tantawai. Said Kasobhai, the commander of the Third Army, was appointed as Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces. Morsi also retired the commander of the Navy, Mohab Memesh, and appointed him as head of the Suez Canal Authority. On 3 July 2013, in response to millions of Egyptians' demands demonstrating in streets all over Egypt since 30 June 2013, the head of the Egyptian Armed Forces, then Colonel General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, announced the removal of President Mohamed Morsi from power, the suspension of the constitution, and new presidential and House of Representatives elections. The severe crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood and pro-Morsi supporters commenced. Notable incidents such as the 2013 Republican Guard headquarters clashes and the August 2013 RABAA massacre claimed the lives of hundreds to thousands of demonstrators by military and police forces. The U.S. provides annual military assistance to the Egyptian Armed Forces. In 2009, the U.S. provided nominal $1.3 billion to the Egyptian military. Much of this is in equipment such as tanks and jet fighters that are surplus to Egyptian needs and kept in storage. According to Article 200 of the Egyptian Constitution, the armed forces belong to the people, and their duty is to protect the country, and preserve its security and the integrity of its territories. Politics. The armed forces enjoy considerable power, prestige and independence within the Egyptian state. During almost the entire history of the Republic of Egypt, active or retired military officers have been head of the Egyptian state. The first democratically elected president who served for 1 year was removed by a military coup after the June 2013 Egyptian protests throughout Egypt. Even the constitution drafted and passed under Morsi included protections for the military from legal and parliamentary oversight, and deferred to objections from the country's military leadership by removing a clear prohibition on trials of civilians before military courts. Some drafters had tried to include, starting with the Egyptian Revolution of 1952, which created the Republic of Egypt, and was organized by the Free Officers Movement. Presidents of Egypt Gamal Abdel Nasser, Anwar Sadat, Hosni Mubarak were ex-military officers for almost 60 years. This was interrupted with the 2011 revolution, when President Mubarak was forced to step down by the military in response to the revolution, and the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces ruled until it held a presidential election which resulted in Mohamed Morsi taking office on 3 July 2013, responding to millions in the streets. The head of the armed forces, then General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, announced the removal of Morsi and installation of the interim civilian president, the Chief Justice of Supreme Constitutional Court Adli Mansour. On 4 July 2013, 68-year-old Mansour was sworn in as acting president. On 26 March 2014, el-Sisi resigned from the military, announcing he would stand as a candidate in the 2014 presidential election. He won the 26–28 May 2014 election in a landslide. Sisi was sworn into office as President of Egypt on 8 June 2014. Business. The military has its own hospitals, factories, clubs, and gas stations staffed by its officers, soldiers, and civilians. The organization is influential in business circles, engaging in road and housing construction, consumer goods, resort management, and owning extensive tracts of real estate. Much military information is not made publicly available, including budget information, the names of the general officers and the military's size. According to journalist Joshua Hammer, as much as 40% of the Egyptian economy is controlled by the Egyptian military. The number, which is described as a myth by some economists and journalists and contribution considered by some as necessary for the Egyptian economy and the needs of the armed forces to maintain its strength. Structure. Egyptian armed forces consists of several main branches, departments and authorities. Main branches are the Army, the Air Forces, the Air Defense, and the Navy. The Egyptian Army is administratively divided into 4 tactical commands. Each command is under control of a major general in addition to 2 armies and different corps and divisions. The Egyptian Air Force are the second biggest branch under control of the armed forces. The EAF has over 1,309 combat aircraft, 321 armed helicopters, and controls about 17 airbase. The Egyptian Navy is the largest branch under the armed forces control. It is the largest navy in the Middle East and Africa, and is the 7th largest in the world measured by the number of vessels. The Egyptian Air Defense Forces is the latest established branch in the armed forces, consists of 30,000 officers and soldiers plus 40,000 conscripts. Departments of the Egyptian Armed Forces include the Departments of Armament Affairs, Officers Affairs, Management and Administration, and the Department of Morale Affairs, which is responsible for managing the Egyptian Armed Forces' public image, boosting goodwill towards troops, writing the speeches of the armed forces, public statements, contacting the media, and organizing the Egyptian Armed Forces conferences and symposiums. Moreover, the medical management of the armed forces is responsible for managing the medical affairs of the armed forces as well as controlling the hospitals run by the armed forces, which serves both civilians and military personnel, estimated at 19 hospitals in Cairo, 8 in Alexandria, 3 in Matru, 2 in each of Ismailia and Garbia, 1 in each of Port Said, Al-Sharqiya, Dakalia, Beni Suef, Minya, Sohag, Kunar, Aswan, Kafr el-Sheikh, and North Sinai. Authorities of the armed forces include the Engineering Authority. It's the sector beneath the armed forces responsible for the engineering work. Its missions variety between war and peacetime. In wartime, the authority is responsible for the engineering aid to the forces. One of the authority major operations was Operation Badr. In peacetime, the authority is responsible in helping build Egypt's infrastructure and the national projects including cities, stadiums, clubs. In addition to the financial authority responsible for the financial matters in the armed forces and the research authority, the armed forces also hold control of military judiciary and military intelligence directorate. Structure of the Field Army's personnel. As of 2015, the Egyptian Armed Forces were reported to have 438,500 active personnel, 479,000 reserve personnel and 397,000 paramilitary personnel, making it one of the largest armed forces in the world. Main military branches. Egyptian Army. The inventory of the Egyptian Armed Forces includes equipment from the United States, France, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and the People's Republic of China. Equipment from the Soviet Union is being progressively replaced by more modern US, French, and British equipment, a significant portion of which is built under license in Egypt, such as the M1A2 Abrams tank, which makes Egypt the owner of the second largest number of latest generation main battle tanks in the region and the first in the case of the older generations. Conscripts for the Army and other service branches without a university or secondary school degree serve 3 years as enlisted soldiers. Conscripts with a general secondary school degree serve 2 years as enlisted personnel. Conscripts with a university degree serve 1 year as enlisted personnel or 3 years as a reserve officer. Officers for the Army are trained at the Egyptian Military Academy, one of the oldest academies in the world. Egyptian Air Force. The Egyptian Air Force, or EAF, is the aviation branch of the Egyptian Armed Forces. Currently, the backbone of the EAF is the F-16. The EAF is considered to be the strongest in Africa and one of the strongest in the Middle East. The Mirage 2000 is the other modern interceptor used by the EAF. The Egyptian Air Force has 228 F-16s, making it the fourth largest operator of the F-16 in the world. It has about 1,100 combat aircraft and 245 armed helicopters, having at least 35 Apaches AH-64D, as it also continues to fly extensively upgraded MiG-21s, F-7 Skybolts, F-4 Phantoms, Dassault Mirage Versus, and the C-130 Hercules, among other planes. The Air Force is undergoing massive modernization. Miko Yan in late 2014 confirmed that Egypt signed a deal to acquire 24 MiG-29M fighter jets, and is in negotiations to acquire 24 MiG-35 fighter jets, and it was reported that Egypt is in negotiations with French Dassault for an initial order of 24 Rafale fighter jets. Egyptian Air Defense. The Egyptian Air Defense Command, or EADC, is Egypt's military command responsible for air defense, one of the most powerful air defenses in the world. Egypt patterned its air defense force after the Soviet anti-air defenses, which integrated all its air defense capabilities: anti-aircraft guns, rocket and missile units, interceptor planes, and radar and warning installations. Its commander is Lt. Gen. Abdul Menyem Al-Torres. Egyptian Navy. Although the Egyptian Navy is the smallest branch of the military, it is large by Middle Eastern standards. The Egyptian Navy is known to be the strongest in the African continent, and the largest in the Middle East, in spite of the rapid growth of other countries' navies within the region. Some fleet units are stationed in the Red Sea, but the bulk of the force remains in the Mediterranean. Navy headquarters and the main operational and training base are located at Ras El Tin near Alexandria. The current commander is Vice Admiral Osama El-Jendi. The Navy also controls the Egyptian Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is responsible for the onshore protection of public installations near the coast and the patrol of coastal waters to prevent smuggling. It has an inventory consisting of about 35 large patrol craft and 20 smaller Bertram-class coastal patrol craft built in the United States. See List of naval ships of Egypt for a list of vessels in service. Egyptian Rapid Deployment Forces. Egyptian Rapid Deployment Forces is one of the branches of the Egyptian Armed Forces. It was formed in March 2014 by the former Defense Minister Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. It is mainly airborne troops with a special formation, and it is characterized by the ability to perform operations inside and outside the Egyptian mainland. It comprises the most efficient elements of the mechanized infantry, armored corps, air defense, artillery and anti-tank teams. Special Forces. Special Forces in the Egyptian Armed Forces are units under control of different branches. Most of the officers take the Special Saka course. In addition to SACA, special forces take specialized training in the fields of direct action, hostage rescue, counterterrorism, unconventional warfare, special reconnaissance, asymmetric warfare. However, most information about Egyptian Army's units are classified. Notable special forces in the Egyptian Armed Forces. SACA Forces. Unit 777, Counter-Terrorism and Special Operations Unit. Unit 999, Special Operations and Reconnaissance Unit. Navy SACA. Special forces from officers and non-commissioned officers from infantry, SACA. Paratroopers and Navy can take the SEAL course, which is considered the most advanced course in the Egyptian Armed Forces.